Live on, where's my Instagram? There it is. All right. If technology works, which I'm pretty sure it does, uh, at least most of the time, right? We
Right.
are live. The man himself, Jermaine Stone. I don't even know. I was trying to figure out your bio and how to introduce you, and I think I would be here the entire podcast if I start talking about Emmy nominated, James Beard nominated. You got podcasts, you got TV shows, you got, I mean, dude, the list goes on and on. You are killing it right now,
I,
man.
I stay busy. I definitely stay busy, but having fun. I feel like as long as you are genuine and you do what you love, you focus on trying to connect with people and keeping it real, great things happen. So I'm blessed. Great things have been happening.
I love that. My dogs wanted to say congratulations too, because
Thank you.
it's that time of day when the dogs walk by the front. Owners are taking them on a walk, and they are jealous that they're not out there. So I'm
They
gonna have
just
to have the
they just
finger quick
part of
on
the
the
life.
mute trigger.
Yeah, they just want to be a part of the live. That's all it is.
They do. So, of the accomplishments and the accolades that you've received, is there one that when you think back to your arc in the crossover wine hip hop world that means the most to you?
Yeah, it's tough to say what means the most, but I definitely feel like being nominated for an Emmy, that was a huge deal. It's just one of those things where you do something and it's very rare that you can be recognized with literally the best in the world for that particular thing. And that's something that I'm still going after. I always say I want to not EGOT, but I want a BGOT. I want a Beard, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award. And I do know that I'm gonna get those things, but it was definitely like really reassuring for my first network show ever, and not even a big network, for it to be recognized that way. It definitely meant a lot. But honestly, for me to just like be where I am and to be well received by my peers and see that we're actually making progress with an idea that I randomly had sitting at my kitchen counter one day, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
that to me means the most.
I love how you said that too, because we're kind of cut from the same cloth in this way. You didn't say if I win these things. I didn't say,
Oh,
if everything goes according to plan, or if my dream, it's a win. It's I'm going to win these things. I started a film sales and distribution company and a co-production company, and I just right away, I was like, we were talking about goals and talking about what we want to do. And it's like, I'm going to win a fucking Oscar. Like, what? What do you mean? Like, we're winning Oscars. That's what we're here to do. Like, it's not a if,
yeah.
it's a win, not an if. I
For
love that.
sure, for sure. I was genuinely surprised by literally like my first network show out, and that is how we're being recognized.
Yeah.
I put up this
That's
post.
unheard of, man.
Like
Yeah.
I felt like it was gonna be something that came down the line. I attached a certain amount of prestige to Emmys and such. But in my post, kind of following that, one of the things that I mentioned was that Jordan and LeBron, they all made it to the playoffs earlier in their career, but none of them even made it to the finals. And the fact
Yeah.
that I was able to do that as a quote unquote rookie in this space, it just, it gives me so much hope for what is to come. And I know what I got in the cut that I'm working on, and I know the ideas that I have and the kinds of ideas that will only continue to come. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about it, man. I'm really excited.
I love that. Before I dive in with some deeper questions, tell me what you're sipping on. Oh, that's great timing. Look at that. You're professional.
I was thirsty,
What are
man.
what are you sipping
Um,
on?
well, you know what? We just finished National Prosecco Week not too long ago. It's the end of the day. I have a ton of prosecco in my fridge, and so yeah, and it's super hot. I wanted something fresh, crisp. So I am drinking some, actually some Zardetto prosecco. One of my, I
There you
really
go.
like that brand. I've been drinking it for a while.
I
But
love it.
I had some fried chicken earlier, fried chicken, prosecco.
It's a
It's
match made in heaven, man.
match made in heaven, man. I was like, you know what? Let me treat myself. I had a very, very aggressive day. It was one of those where you have a call every hour. You know, they're all important
Yeah.
calls. Each one is different. So you kind of got to redirect your brain each time. So by the
I
end, by
love that. I
5
love
p.m.,
those days though.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do. It's like you feel like you've accomplished so much, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by 5 o'clock, I was like, okay, I'm a little bit of a vegetable. So, you know, I mentioned my last call for the day. It was a friend also, so I was able to sip while I was doing it. So I've been rocking that since.
One thing I definitely want to dive into, because I listened to your 100th podcast, which congratulations on passing 100, by the way,
Thank you,
on
man.
wine and hip hop, man. That's
Yeah,
huge. That's
yeah,
fun. But the whole Thanos talk and the Infinity Stone and controlling the narrative and all that. I want to
yeah,
get to that. But I
yeah,
think part of the narrative too, when you think of wine culture, sommeliers, people that are advanced in that culture, you probably have what, $2,500, $3,500 bottles of wine in your refrigerator. And that's
hmm.
what most people probably think. Whereas like I'm sure you on a given day, you're sipping on something much more approachable and affordable to
Oh,
the average wine drinker than what they might expect.
yeah, absolutely. You know, for me, and I drink all kinds of stuff. You know, it's all about where you are, when you're there, who you're with, what's the weather that day, what are you eating. You know, it's truly based on mood. And interestingly enough, I don't even drink that much at home, like on my own. It's
Yeah.
usually like around an activity or something. The thing is, I do work a lot. I do go to a lot of excuse me, I do go to a lot of events, do a lot of work events and things like that. Definitely entertain company a lot. So within that regards, sure, I drink a lot of wine, but if I'm just at home chilling, kicking back, watching a movie, I'm often not, you know, I'm just drinking lemonade sometimes.
Dude, a good lemonade on a hot summer day. Come on.
Yo, you know what I like to do? I like just regular plain water with just a little bit of lemon squeeze in there, just
Mm.
that little.
Yeah. Yeah.
That to me is so thirst quenching. So you know, I drink that a lot. But today it was like I said, I was kind of rewarding myself for an aggressive day.
Yeah.
It was either this or some grape soda. So you know, prosecco won, and
Right.
it was
If I,
cold. It was like
yeah.
it was cold. It's right there. But nah, you know, I drink all kinds of stuff, and there are times where you know when being a little bit more intentional around pairing, then I might do something a little bit different. But today it was just turn your brain off, drink something with some bubbles, and that's refreshing.
I love that. I want to go back. You talked a little bit about like you entertain a lot. You're on the work circuit quite a bit. I
Yeah,
don't know if people understand because we have a mutual friend in Eric Flanagan from Flanagan Wines out
yeah,
in Hillsburg, California, and I know how many wine events he has and his daughter Riley has per week, and
yeah,
I know just how much they're on a plane and how much they're traveling and speak to that, man. Like, what
yeah.
is that life like? You almost have to be so diligent in how you work out and what you do when you're not working so that you're on your A game and can continue to drink when you are, because that's part of your job.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, something I do a lot. I definitely walk a lot. I walk every morning.
Mm.
I have my walk with God every morning, and it's a long walk, you know. So I definitely do that. But as far as like you know, just being on a plane and stuff that often, really a lot of the difficulty comes in with like balancing family life. You know, I have a 6-year-old daughter. I got a 17-year-old son who's going to be entering college at the end of this summer. You know, so ensuring that I'm able to be a present father for them while I'm traveling, you know, still have time to connect with friends, family, so on and so forth. But at the same time, as you mentioned, hosting a lot of different events, and not just hosting a lot of events, but it's different kinds of events, working with different brands. You know, it's always something a little bit different. You know, the week of the Emmys, I was in California. I was in California for 10 days, and I
Mm.
hosted 3 different events, all of which had different wine selections. And there were 2 different concepts. One of them was my terroir tapes listening sessions, which I'm coming to Tulsa for. And the
Yeah.
other, I was hosting an event for the network that I'm on called Taste Made. They had something called the Fast Feast, and Fast is just an abbreviation for all of the. It's just, they call them fast channels, basically the Hulus, the Netflix, the Roku, all of those, Apple TV, all of those different channels that exist on these streaming platforms. They're called fast channels. So I hosted a dinner where I created wine pairings with a chef, and they grouped together basically a bunch of different executives from all these different channels to create community around that. So that was a completely different program from what I was doing for the Terroir Tapes listening sessions. And even within that, one of them was in Oakland, one of them was in Los Angeles. I had two completely different types of crowds, two different wine selections, and I pour from three different regions for each one. So the amount of just wine information that I had to retain and be able to speak fluently and excited about, and find different pairings for, balancing that with your life and family, that's really where the
Man.
difficulty comes in.
Yeah.
But I was speaking with someone earlier, and I called it like muscle memory. Being able to do this over and over and over, you become good at it. Last year when I was shooting Street Psalm, so just for everyone at home, Street Psalm is the Emmy nominated show.
Yep.
But that's where one of my AKAs comes from, Jermaine Bourdain, where I'm traveling from city to city, and I'm linking up with a different foodie in each city, and I'm creating these dynamic food and wine pairings as they introduce me to the city through food. And, I would need to learn all of this stuff about the different brands, about the different cities, about the different locations. And I was traveling a lot, all the while still hosting events, still doing things for other clients. So it was a lot, but pretty much I'd travel, I'd, study on the plane, I'd shoot my scenes for the day, go right back to my hotel, study the following day. So it's really all about preparation, but doing all of these things it's what thickened the muscle and just kind of made me stronger to where now, I can just pop out and do it no problem.
Yeah. Did your past in the hip hop world have any benefit? Any, I don't know, like I don't know if the experience would be the same, but could you draw on anything from that when you started to try to bridge hip hop into wine?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I mean, it really first started to rear its head when because I started out in the wine auction business,
Mm.
and I remember I went from the guy packing boxes in the warehouse and ended up moving up, over the course of like 13 and a half years. When I left wine auction, I was the auction director and auctioneer for the auction house that I was at. And I was deathly afraid before my first time getting on that auction stage, because you have all these like complicated French, Italian, German words. I'm a young black dude from the hood, like we don't speak that way. I didn't take French
Right.
class or anything like
Right,
that in
right.
high school. So, wrapping your mind around the language was difficult, but at the same time, as an auctioneer, you really have to move. You have to keep the energy and pace of the room, and there's a time limit. I would have to sell 200 lots per hour. Now, one lot is basically one unit of sale. So it could have one bottle, it could have 100 bottles, and I need to quickly describe that, quickly assess who's interested in the room, quickly move them along in the transaction. But a key, especially in commercial wine auctioneering, is being clear with what it is you're selling, and being clear with communication, and understanding how to be a proper master of ceremony. But the first time I auctioneered, I was horrible. And I remember I was so afraid. I felt like crap. I go back with one of my friends who's a rapper, and I'm like, yo, I don't know, man. I don't know if I could do this, and this is really nerve wracking. And he's like, yo, just treat it like you on stage rapping. And I'm like, You
That's
know
good
what?
advice.
That
Yeah.
is a really good point because like speed, cadence, all of these things really matter as an auctioneer. And it's just like you're trying to learn these fast raps. It's the same thing. It's just kind of wrapping your mind around the phonetic pronunciation of these words, which is what I would do. You know, I would like take a lot of time with the auctioneer's book and write all of these complicated words out phonetically so I can, you know, look at it at a glance and just say it. And I became a pretty strong auctioneer just by approaching things in that way. And it also helped me to identify on what my individual style was as an auctioneer, and also separate me a lot from the crowd because, you know, I couldn't, even now I can't think of anyone in this space that has had my background with the dichotomy of things that I've done, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it has absolutely. And then also, you know, understanding how to control a room, how to control a crowd, keep people engaged, keep people entertained, and help people to focus on you and what it is you're saying. Being able to project a clear message, all of those things are things that that I draw from in my skill as an artist. But at the same time, sommeliers are really the rappers of the wine industry, you know,
It's an
because
interesting correlation. Yeah.
truly as a sommelier, you know, what they're doing is drawing comparisons between flavors and textures that you might be familiar with and connecting them with a flavor that you haven't even tasted yet. And they have to find ways to describe that. So essentially, they're creating a lot of metaphors with taste. And that's the kind of hip hop that I love, the kinds of artists that are creating, you know, dynamic and cool metaphors. And sometimes the sommeliers are wordsmiths, you know, they have to project themselves the right way. They have to come with a certain amount of confidence, poise. And, you know, I don't know if you ever sat down with a sommelier and they describe a wine so well, it almost tastes better just based on the way they described it. You
Man,
know?
it's one of those things where without them, I taste it. And look, I'm not a sommelier. Like, I like wine, but I like whiskey too, or where's it over here?
Yep.
So, you know, if I'm going to drink at home, I'll probably pour a little sip of that. But I have plenty of wine as well. But like, I equate sommeliers and how they're able to describe what you're supposed to taste, and afterwards, after they say it, what you will be tasting,
Right.
to the coffee snobs and the people that will tell you like, oh, this coffee tastes like apricot and fresh raspberries, and you taste
Yeah.
it and you're like, no, it tastes like coffee.
It
But
tastes like,
then like you start thinking about it and it's like, oh wait, okay, I get that note. Like
yeah.
I get it. It's amazing when you sit with someone in either one of those verticals that is supremely talented in describing what's there. You just have to know to look for it. It changes the entire drinking experience.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's
Yeah.
like it now becomes an art form, you know, but and that's something that I try to focus on, you know, when looking at ways to make wine more approachable. I'm all about meeting people where they are, you know, and it's like you mentioned, man. And believe me, sometimes, definitely by the end of the night, it just all tastes like wine. You know, at
I'm
the end
glad to hear you say that because
Listen,
yeah,
you
I'm
know,
there too.
we
Yeah.
can't take ourselves too seriously in this thing. However, you know, there's drinking and then there's intentional tasting. And it's just, you know, sometimes you want the radio hit, but sometimes you want that deep album cut that you want to really resonate with you. And you got to meet people where they are. And it's okay for something to just, excuse me, just taste like wine. But at the same time, you know, I mentioned earlier, you know, I was having some fried chicken. It was a hot day. It was, you know, all of the different elements were right for me to find ways to elevate my meal
Mm.
and elevating that experience. So, you know, think about it this way: like, you can drink milk on a hot day, and it's like, you can just
That's
now
as
automatically,
Ron
oh,
Burgundy said,
you
that's
know
a
what I mean?
bad decision.
Exactly. Milk was a bad choice. You know, it's hot. You ain't gonna like it. But if
Yeah.
it's cold, you're in front of a fire, you know, you got some cookies. Like now that milk is going to be awesome. So I look at it as being what a sommelier really has to do. The task of a sommelier is to understand all the different conditions that go into a drinking experience and being
Mm,
able to provide the best drink for that experience that you're currently having at that particular time. Like I mentioned, I got some good stuff in here. I'm not going to drink it all the time. This is just more so what fit to heighten that experience that I was having at the time. So I think that that's the key. And of course, you're going to need a lot of information to be able to draw and make the best decision on what that's going to be at that time. And that's where the skill really comes in. But same thing where it's like I'm a rap nerd, so I love to listen to a new album and argue with my friends about it and go back and forth about it and all that stuff. To me, that is the sommelier sitting down and describing, you're tasting this fruit,
mm,
this is why this tastes this way. It's enjoying to go through the weeds in that way, but you don't have to do that in order to enjoy it. One, and two, that's not for everybody,
right.
so it's just about figuring out what it is you want out of this experience that you're having right now. That's the key.
I know where I want to go next, but I'm curious. Is that a Knicks jersey you're wearing, or what are you wearing there?
It is. It's a
Okay. All right.
throwback Patrick Ewing jersey, man.
Old 33. Old 33. I love that.
Exactly. It's been
Uh,
getting this use in all of these 90-degree days. All of these jerseys have been getting their use for sure.
I love that. I'm curious. So, was your foray into wine just so serendipitous that, like, did you take that job just because you needed a job, and then all of a sudden you found love for the entire industry and it just blossomed for there? Or did you previously, maybe somewhere in your upbringing or whatever, kind of have an affinity for wine, and that's why you took the job to begin with, and then it was just a stepping stone from there? How did that all shake out?
Yeah, at that time, I just wanted a job, period. I wanted what would be a full-time job where I'd be able to have set hours that had some sort of opportunity for upward mobility. Before working at Zacky's, at the wine auction house that I worked at, I wrote a 5-year plan. And at the end of the 5-year plan, I was hoping to purchase a catering hall. That was what I wanted to do. And I
Okay.
looked it up. I'm like, okay, catering hall, I need this amount of money. To get this amount of money, I need to get a business loan. To get this business loan, I'm going to need a college degree. To get the degree, I need to go to school. I also need good credit. Then for my business plan, I'll need to show that I have administrative experience. But it's really difficult to just randomly get hired in an
Right.
office.
Right.
You have to have the experience. So I was like, okay, I'll just get a bottom level job anywhere that has an office, and I'll work my way up in that way. And at the time, it was really just like a plan B to calm my parents down. I was still really focused on music at the time. And I began working at this auction house. And the interesting thing is, I started seeing all the things that I heard rappers talking about. Like Biggie talks about being in restaurants with mandolins and violins and stuff. And being in this auction space, I was in these restaurants. So much of what artists were describing in their raps, I was around. And I wasn't dealing with what I was dealing with as an artist in hip hop in a lot of the spaces that I was in. Because I was definitely in some grimy areas. There was a lot of things that happened. And so, when I got in the wine auction world, I was just like, oh, wow, I can like have this same experience that I was thinking that I would get in hip hop and wasn't getting. And I
Mm,
didn't have to deal with any of the foolishness that I was dealing with in that rap world. So I never stopped writing. I continued writing, but I just stopped pursuing music professionally and ended up growing and evolving in the wine space and, developing great friendships, learning a lot. And I was just growing a lot as a person. Growing up in the Bronx, I had a very limited amount of exposure, even thinking that I had a lot more exposure than a lot of my friends. My parents are Caribbean, so I was
mm.
traveling internationally as a young kid where many of my friends never left our neighborhood. and I'd have these experiences. I had a passport, I had all these things. So I was thinking that I was a lot more worldly than I actually was. But even like working prior to me working in the wine auction space, I didn't even have any white friends. And it's not to say like, I just didn't have an opportunity to have those friends. It would be like my bosses at work or my teachers, but never hanging out with them like a social setting. So wine brought me to that space where I was able to coexist with a lot of different cultures socially. And, I was seeing the same thing where, they never had the opportunity to come hang out with a young Black dude from the Bronx. So there was a lot of cultural exchange happening and a lot of misconceptions just being put out the window because now you're getting to speak to a real person. And that's what a lot of what I've tried to do in wine is show how much I've been able to grow as a person, show how much I've been able to help other people grow, within what I was doing. And I feel like that has a much bigger message, and it's something that's really needed, especially when you look at where this country is right now. It's something that's like really important for people to get to see one another and really get to know who we are as people, as opposed to what we are marketed as, overall. Because
That is
when
some
you're
deep
having a
truth right there.
conversation with like a person, I always say a person is smart and people are stupid. When it gets to the group think, it's a whole different thing. But when it's you and I having a conversation, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And all of these things that you might have assumed are just right out the window. But you also realize how similar we all are. And wine was one of those things that has just constantly created a level playing field with me and lots of different people from different cultures all over the world, So it's been a really eye-opening experience. And a big part of what drives me to do what I do is understanding how powerful this culture can be in helping to bring people together.
And I feel that on a personal level, because when we're debating like which one of the films that we have rights to need to go theatrical or which ones need to go straight to streaming or which one, what my business partners will always talk about, well, the general public will think this, the general public will think that. And if I had a dime for every time I said, guys, the general public is dumb. Like there's just no, like you can't base anything around that. Like we have to do what we know is right. And then, the public will catch up. So I feel what you're saying. I do want to touch on, or go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say a hand sale is very different from like a big general marketing play for that reason.
Yeah. No, 100%. I want to touch on the cultural aspect of what you're talking about too, and kind of back. And I promise we'll talk about like the modern day stuff and why we're actually talking when you're coming to Tulsa and all that. But I just find this fascinating to me because there's this cultural aspect of what you're doing that I really respect and I really love, and I just wanted to tell you that man to man because, and it goes back to that 100th episode and the Thanos and the control, having a strong position in the narrative, and kind of what you were talking about on that episode. Because for so long, I feel like the narrative, rightly or wrong, I'm not sure, of the space in which you now live for the most part in the wine world was this stuffy, pinky out, towel over the forearm, like it's a gentleman's club, it's a country club. You can't join if you don't look a certain way, if you don't act a certain way, if you don't make a certain amount of money. Like it's this, and that was, I know in a broad sense that's not true, but that was just perception, right? That was public, which we just defined as dumb, but that was their perception.
Right.
How have you seen since you started this kind of crossover hip hop into wine, and you've been in rooms with people who, like you said, ordinarily wouldn't interact with someone like yourself? Like, have you seen that shift at all? Have you seen the guard kind of come down a little bit and everyone realize that, oh yeah, for this industry to be what we really want it to be, it needs to be more approachable to everyone?
For sure. I think there's a big call for that right now. Definitely with the reduced consumption of wine overall. There's a lot of eyes on trying to figure out how to help wine continue to evolve, how to help wine grow. What do people actually want? That white tablecloth service stuff is really going out of the window as we continue to evolve and change. So figuring out just what this space looks like now is actually a big job and a big conversation. And a lot of what I do, you know, as a consultant on the back end with lots of different companies. But there is absolutely a crave to want to do that. You know, just me on my own. I've found that it often kind of comes down to, you know, you can say, you know, a general way to say is like who you sit with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what I've realized is as I come in and I present myself a certain way, and people see that I can still be taken seriously, although I'm just being my complete self with the Knick jersey on. No, you know, like the person that has the suit on with the stuffy suit, they don't even want to do that either. They're doing
Right.
what they think they had to do.
They're playing a
So,
part. Yeah.
exactly. So they're like, oh,
Yeah.
we don't have to do this. Oh, okay. So that's what I've seen and what I've been finding. And you know, I've been doing this now since 2016. So I feel like it's only really in the last 3 years that I'm seeing a bit more of that actual change and that actual drive. But you know, people still don't really know what this industry and this culture is going to look like. But I do feel like there's an active thirst and hunger to figure it out, and an active hunger to try to change and find a way that fits with everyone. And I've definitely been very privileged to be a part of that. You know, I actually got off a call even just earlier today. Last year, I'd hosted this event at this castle, this place, Clos de Vougeot. It's one of the holy grounds of Burgundy. You know, it's hands down one of the most historic sites in the region. You know, for those of you that know wine, Burgundy is hands down one of the most prestigious wine regions in the world. You know, Clos de Vougeot is a 1,000-year-old castle, and I hosted a wine and hip hop party there last year.
Man,
you know,
how cool is that?
I had Giles Peterson DJing, Mike D from the Beastie Boys DJing. We performed a Beastie Boys song.
No kidding.
A French
Oh,
OG,
man.
MC Solar, who was like the first French rapper. He came, he performed. Like it was amazing, and it was so well received that you know, the people that ran the chateau, like the next day, they're like, okay, well, what day do you want next year? You know, so we're coming
this
back.
is a thing now. Okay.
It's a thing. It's a thing. So,
right.
you know, it's looking like we're definitely going to be doing like a multi-year partnership. And the best part about it is, and we talk about these misconceptions, you know, when we started doing this 2 years ago, we had no big corporate sponsors or anything like that.
Yeah.
This was funded completely by the winemakers of Burgundy. Right.
No shit.
So,
Wow.
absolutely. You know, that's who flew me out there. That's who, you know, they poured their wine. And I'm talking like you got like Jean-Marc Rouleau pouring his wine downstairs while I'm playing Juvenile back that ass up, you know? And everybody's having a great time.
That's the quote of the podcast. I don't care what's said from now on. That's it. Yeah, we're done.
But you know, it's like people assume this culture is so stuffy, but it's just not that. You know, you can, stereotypes exist for a reason, right? We all fall into some sort of stereotype. However, we're not bound by our stereotypes. They're just a part of our personality. So I think that, you know, for a long time, people have been restricting themselves, and culturally, we've been restricted to a particular stereotype. And now it's fun because, like, you know, we're looking at how to change, so we're able to bust out of that. And I think, you know, the work that I've done with Clos de Vougeot is a great example of what this culture is capable of.
If you can make that party next year anywhere around the Cannes Film Festival, I'll already be in France, so I will be there. I will make it a point. I have to figure out a way to get there. If it's somewhere around like mid-May, I will make it happen.
You know what? I mean, the best thing about that is I feel like at this point I get called back to Europe so often for these things. you hit me up. There'll probably be something going on around there.
We'll
This
be
usually,
partying in some castle somewhere.
yeah,
Like, don't
somewhere,
worry.
man. There's
Yeah,
plenty of there's no shortage of castles in Europe. You just let me
that's
know
true.
when you're there, and we'll figure out which one to send you to.
I respect that. I appreciate it. I want to talk about Street Song, but before I do, you said something a little while back that I want to circle back to. When I hear you were an auctioneer, you know where my mind goes, right? Like, hey,
Oh,
bit hey,
oh yeah.
Do you still have it? Do you still have it?
Oh yeah, that never goes away. It's like riding a bike, you know.
So
Um,
there's a logical follow up here. Do you know where I'm going?
if I gotta auction this glass off,
Yep, yep.
see, I'll say this. Every auctioneer has a particular style, right? And
Hmm.
also commercial auctioneering is very different from charity auctioneering.
True,
And
true.
thinking of the fact that, like, for example, in a commercial auction, I talked about what a lot is. I was selling 200 lots per hour. You got to be real quick. At a charity auction, it's like you got to drag the money out
Yeah,
of the room.
yeah.
Commercial auctions, people show up, they know what they want. It's a business transaction. But for a charity auction, you're trying to grab people's heartstrings. You are, and you're working with the charity. And trust me, when the auction doesn't go well, everybody looks at the auctioneer. They don't think about anything else. They don't think about who came in the room. They don't think about marketing. They don't think about nothing. It's all about the auctioneer. So at a charity auction there. So they're both different styles
Yeah.
that I approach. For me, I always, one, like, all you need is that one person in the room. Find your one person,
You find them early, like
your
you
anchor
find
is.
them. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Find who that anchor is, you set your tone, and just try to be as entertaining as you can. For charity auctions. For commercial auctions, I try to be very clear. I try to make sure that I'm not missing out on any bids in the room, that everyone feels seen, and that I'm also identifying any deals and bargains and things like that people might miss. So
Mm,
they're both different styles, but yes,
yeah.
they all exist.
Do you have a virtual component to that at the same time that you have to pay attention to, or is it just the people that are in the room?
Yeah. Towards the end, because I started in this game in 2004. Like, when I started,
Okay. Yeah.
fax machine, we were still getting bids on fax machine, which is
You would hear
crazy.
the fax machine kick up, and you're like, "Hold on."
One moment,
Yeah.
you said wait, but no, we would get absentee bids, so that was like the day before.
Mm,
But towards the end of my time in the commercial auctioneering space, but yeah, virtual bids were a thing. So when I started, it was like telephone bids, so there would be people on the phone, and
right.
they put the paddle up for the on the bidder's behalf. But yeah, there is a virtual component where you have to also watch a screen, and you have to look at that screen the same way you would look at any bids in the room. But a very important role that is not often spoken about is the standing bid clerk, who is the
Ooh.
support for the auctioneer, because you got so much going on. It's just hard to keep track of everything. So that's how I learned how to auctioneer. I was a standing bid clerk for years. To shout out to my man Fritz Hatton, who I still believe is the greatest wine auctioneer in the world.
Okay.
He does like the Napa Valley wine auction every year.
Oh,
He's
right. Yeah.
legendary. But I was a standing bid clerk for him for years, and I had to support him in making sure that no bids were missed and ensuring that the auctioneer is able to stay on what you call footing. So there are auction increments that should be followed. So when you're in the hundreds, you go by 50s. When you get up to past 2,000, then you're going into by 200s. When you get past 5,000, then you're going by 500s.
Okay.
So the thing is, when an auctioneer is up on stage, you have a book with the description of the item that's being sold, as well as the top three bidders for that particular item that's being sold. Now, you know who the bottom bidder is. They're not going to get it. But You have the auctioneer's responsibility is to execute the absentee bids on the absentee bidder's behalf against the room and against the internet. So let's say your top bid is $700. I have to make sure that wherever I start, I'm going to be able to go back and forth with my book, and I'm not going to have a tie bid of $700 with anyone else in the room, because that absentee bidder had their bid in first. So you have to start on the right foot, and you have to know where it to start.
Oh,
So
you're blowing my mind right now.
it's a lot. It is an active math problem that's happening up there.
I thought you just had to be a fast talker, but I was so off. Like there's so much more than that.
It's a lot. So, and after a while, you just kind of get it. You know, you're doing 200 of these things per hour. So you know, it's to the point I can like do it at a glance, especially after you're doing it for a certain amount of years. But yeah, you know, before you go up on stage and you're auctioneering, you know, you make your notes, you make your note as to where you have to start. But there's always a process so that you can start and go back and forth so that you remain on footing and that you're not cheating out your absentee bidder. But yeah, it's a process.
I love that.
It is a process. Is.
All right, I thought of one more question, and then I promise we're going to move more to modern day. Was there a if then when you look back to the hip hop before you got into the wine world? So if blank would have happened, then we wouldn't be here talking right now like we are about wine, because you would be still in the music world. Do you know what that if then was?
Yeah. I probably would say, so there was a show on BET called 106 in Park. And I was on that show one day. There was
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was doing my thing as a
you
teen.
Were. Yeah.
I was doing all of this stuff. And so I was on 106 in Park. And there was this thing called Freestyle Friday where the unsigned artists would battle. And I went up one day. I was on Freestyle Friday. I was battling this guy. I was the challenger. He was the champion. And this singer, Jaheim, who I'm still not a fan of to this day because of this instance, he was the judge for the freestyle session that I was doing. And I clearly beat this guy, you know, but Jaheim was from the hometown of this guy that I was battling.
There's some home cooking going on.
Oh yeah. And the deck was stacked. And the thing is, so there's three judges. One of them was this guy DJ Enough, and then it was Jaheim, and then it was his manager. And this was just poor production planning on BT's part. But you know, the first person who revealed their answer as who their choice was DJ Enough, and he picked me, the challenger. The second person was Jaheim, who was the star, and he picked the champion. And I mean, if we can go back to this, I hope that, you know, one day you guys find the footage, find me on that thing, whatever. But Jaheim's manager was the deciding vote. And you can watch this thing, and he looked at Jaheim's card and switched.
No.
Who he had picked this other guy. And, you know, me as a 19-year-old, I was like, you know, I'm just so annoyed with this. And it's not about how good you are. It's always like it's something else.
You saw inside the industry in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, it bothered me so much. And the thing is, like, you know, I shouted out my neighborhood where I was from. I used to have this black BMW with my rap name on the side of it. It said Showtime on the side. I pull up at the same pizza shop every day. After I was on that show, like a whole bunch of kids like mobbed my car. They were just happy to see me. The night that the episode came on, I was in Red Lobster, and like this woman came up to me. She's like, "Oh, you were on 106 in Park. You know, you were really good. I thought you should have won that." And it was just everybody constantly like, "You should have won. You should have won. You should have won." I just got so annoyed with it. You know, I saw the opportunities in wine and not having to deal with that stuff. I was like, you know what? My work ethic is what moves me forward here. And me making money from hip hop wasn't what defined my love for hip hop.
Sure,
So
sure.
it's not like I have to stop writing. I just, I stopped pursuing music professionally at that point. But if I won on 106 in Park, I might not be here.
Yeah,
So you never know what God is saving you from,
that's
So think of
true.
it that way.
I thought you were going to say that you were battling this guy named Kendrick Lamar or something.
I don't want
You
no
know, I
no problems with Kendrick, man. What he did to Drake was just. I mean, we watched the public hanging. That's bad. That might be the worst battle L of all time in all hip hop.
and the fact that Drake acknowledged it, especially not like us, like I mean that at that point when he did that concert on Amazon and he
Yeah,
played that what was it 7 times in a row?
like 7 times.
I
Yeah,
mean, man,
there's
like
there's no
that's
there's nothing you can do. I mean,
no,
it's
no,
it's I have never seen such a decisive win in a hip hop battle before.
yeah.
Where someone is like really tried and believe me, this is an art that I study. But this was bad, man. I mean,
Yeah,
but
there's a whole nother level apparently. Yeah.
I don't like that Drake swung below the belt. It seemed like it was
Yeah.
just a friendly battle at first. It was just, I want to be the best, and that's cool. But when you start talking about a guy's family and the
Yeah.
stuff he was saying about his
Yeah.
wife and his kids, it was out of line. So, the good guy won on that one in my as far as I'm
uh,
concerned.
he is so talented.
He's so
Um, man, it's yeah. All right, let's talk Street Psalm for a second because I love you and I hate you because that you're like living my dream. Like that's to get to travel to cities like to this day 11 Madison Park is probably top 3 meals I've ever had in my life. And I lucked into it. I sat at the bar, went by myself for lunch one trip to New York and made friends with the bartender. He happened to be from like Oklahoma City randomly at the time.
wow.
Yeah, right. Small world. And so I guess you're not supposed to get the full dining experience when you sit at the bar. Like you have a separate menu, you have all that.
Mhm.
But because of our Oklahoma ties, he let me and called the manager
Sure.
over, made sure it was okay. And so, I mean, it was like a $600 lunch because you have
Oh,
to
yeah.
get the wine pairing, you have to do all that, right?
Yep.
But it was just fantastic. And the fact that, like your show, Somebody Feed Phil, God rest him, Anthony Bourdain,
Yeah.
like all of those shows, like I feel like that's what in another life, like that's me
Yeah.
because I love good drinks, I love good food, and I love meeting people. And when you can cross all of that, like what's your favorite part of that show? What's your favorite part about doing that show?
It's definitely, I mean, traveling is cool. Like I love traveling
Yeah,
and I really do have like it's such it's a tough thing because I have kids, I miss my kids when I travel. But I do love traveling because you really grow as a person. You have this alone time and you're introspective, but it was also very intentional traveling. I was learning a lot. So it was just fun traveling and seeing different cities. You learn so much about people, but I was very fortunate to be able to connect with lots of great people. Every one of those hosts that you saw me connect with while I was traveling, I'm still in touch with all of them. We talk all the
that's
time.
awesome.
Like, San Francisco chef Mimi, she called me 2 hours ago. That's my sister, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Chef Tiffany's like my spiritual advisor. We talk all the time. So it was everything that you saw in that show was genuine, down to even me rediscovering my passion for music happened on that
yeah,
show.
yeah,
I was able to meet Bun B from UGK, who is like one of my favorite rappers of all time. The reason that I listen to Southern hip hop is because of this man. And like I know him now. I was at this
yeah.
food festival. We both were on the bill, and I ran into him. I was standing so he has a place called Trail Burgers, and he was at this festival to do this presentation. Earlier that day, I hosted a wine tasting. So we're all backstage, and I'm standing with the guy who's doing the food program and was supposed to set him up. And when he comes in, he's like the big celebrity there. There's like a line of people waiting to talk to him. And he like glances out the corner of his eye. And he's like, yo, Street Simon. And then he stops his conversation and comes over. I mean, so that show, it was just overall so many parts of it. People were able, and to even just have that part of my life documented is just, I feel very fortunate. But the travel was great. The food was great. The people were great. And it really opened my mind up and allowed me to just think differently. Like I was able to take a piece of each one of those cities back with me to create a whole new person. So it's just, when you do that intentional traveling, I forget where I heard this, but like they said that someone said that true education is traveling,
100%,
being able
100%.
to travel. And there's a certain humility in it, when you don't know the lay of the land and you have to adhere to what the different rules in each different place is and adjust. It takes you out of yourself. And so that I grew a lot shooting that entire thing.
I don't know if we travel the same way. And obviously when you're doing a show, it's different because you have an itinerary, where you're supposed to go. The crew has to be there. Like there's the whole TV side of it, right? That has to exist. Yeah. But I am not an itinerary person. Like I will know where I want to eat and where I want to drink. I'll make reservations if I need to. But other than that, like I get lost on purpose. Like I'll if I'm in London, I'll take the tube. Like I'll be in Montreal, so I won't be able to go to the event at Heirloom, which we'll talk about in a second, because I have to go to a film festival in Montreal. Right. But my plan is like before I go and after I go to the festival each day to just go get lost.
Yeah.
Like, be a local. I don't want to be a tourist. I don't want to be eat at the traps and all of that stuff.
Yep.
And, I want to go just immerse myself and get lost. And it sounds like we share that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's what it's all about. Like, I love to, it's so crazy. Like, I'm same as you. I'm not an itinerary guy. I hate to, I'm not the guy, we're going to do 100 excursions and all that. I'm so boring.
Feels like a field trip in high school when you're doing excursions.
Like, I'm not waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go. Like, I'm an early riser regardless, but I'll wake up early, watch the sunset, watch the sunrise, and just sit in the same spot all day. I listen to music. I just want to chill. I want to go get whatever the local food is. I just want to drive and see beautiful things, see the landscape. Like, that's the kind of traveler that I am when I'm not on TV. But, it's just about relaxing and really just absorbing as much of the local culture as you can without making it a job. Like, I got to do that stuff enough for work.
Right.
I'd rather just chill and take it in, Paul, as it comes.
Yeah. That's a good point. When you travel for work, traveling for pleasure, like there's almost more pleasure in not traveling than there is traveling when you travel for work.
At a certain point in life, being able to take a nap is, whoa, you accomplished something today. I got a nap in, like, oh, wow. Like that's a treat.
I love that. All right, let's talk about why you're coming to town. So you'll be here next weekend, right? Not this.
Next.
Not in a couple days, but the following. Yeah.
A week from today, actually. But so I've been traveling currently, hosting these terroir tapes listening sessions. So the concept of terroir, for those of you that don't know, terroir is a combination of the growing elements around the grapes that produce wine. And that is ultimately what gives wine its regional identity. Soil, for example, there are several different things to consider within this combination. Soil composition, climate, it could be a hot climate, it could be a cool climate. As far as soil, it could be clay soil, it could be sand soil, mineral, even the topography. So like the slope, is it on flat land? The aspect of it, is it north facing? Is it south facing? All of these different things come into play as to what, and then even the human element, What is the cultural identity around how the wine is produced? Is it Asian steel? Is it Asian oak, French oak? There's so many different things that come into play as to why wine from one particular region tastes that way. But so often, you know, the layperson doesn't have that concept. It's either like red or white wine. But Chardonnay from California tastes different from Chardonnay from Burgundy, you know, and it's because of that terroir, that regional identity. And hip hop is the same way. You know, hip hop from the Bay Area sounds different from hip hop in Detroit, which sounds different from hip hop in New York. So there, and it all comes into the simple fact of both of these art forms being products of their environment. And this is a narrative that we talk about often in hip hop, but we don't really dial in on what that is. What is that environment? What are the different contributing factors to make up that environment? So the same way that I can tell you how soil composition affects the texture of wines, or even, you know, the freshness of wines, I wanted to look at what these different elements that exist within hip hop culture are, and how it contributes to the way that music sounds regionally. So I broke that down between vernacular. So whether it's the slang or the regional dialect, you know, you can't just say someone has a Southern accent. You know, there's a Texas Southern accent, there's an Alabama Southern accent.
Way different. Yeah.
That dialect changes from place to place, you know, and the slang that's used in each of these places are different. You know, you could look at, and we talking about hip hop. So like when someone says, you know, they're hustling on the corner, you know where they're from. If they're hustling on the stoop, you know where they're from. If they say they're hustling in the trap, you know they're from Atlanta. You know, so it's all different based on where they are regionally. Also, the musicality is different. You have the style of beats, the tempo, the flow, all of these things change, and then there's the socioeconomical conditions and the influence that has. How do people make money? How do people socialize? All of these things come into play, and that combination of things is what creates the terroir of hip hop. So with the Terroir Tapes listening sessions, what I've been doing is I've always been known for creating wine and hip hop pairings, but I based that on several different things. But here I'm actually doing regional pairings, where I'm pairing a hip hop, a wine region with a hip hop region. And I'm breaking down the different elements of terroir in both of those. And that's what I'm deciding the pairings based on. And, you know, we've done this at this point. We did this in New York, Oakland, Los Angeles, DC, Cincinnati. And of course, I'm coming to Tulsa next week. And I mean, people love it, you know, because it's just a real and a fun thing. And the thing that I enjoy most about it is, you know, as I mentioned with Street Sound, I am back to actually making music. So
yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
At a part of each thing, I'm playing some of my new stuff, and you know, just gauging people's interest and getting people excited about the music that's going to be coming from me. And you know, I'm particularly excited about Tulsa because, you know, I had no idea until I came there this last April. I didn't even know about the thriving hip hop scene that was coming out of Tulsa. And, you know, that project, you know, Fire in Little Africa, like I connected with
so good. So good.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we're actually going to have a freestyle session at the end of it. And a bunch
I'm so mad I'm going to be missing this.
Like we all gonna, it is going to be quintessential wine and hip hop, you know, at its rawest and most purest form in all of these things. So I'm particularly excited about Tulsa. And I mean, you know, going there in April is what made me want to come back. You know, when I was there, I connected with a bunch of people, and I told them I was going to be coming back. And, you know, I was looking forward to coming back. And, you know, I'm just glad that we were able to figure out an opportunity that made sense. And I'm excited about it.
I'm so mad I'm going to be missing that. That's
it's going to be good. It's gonna
I
be good.
know. And I'm surprised there's still a few tickets left at general admission. I mean, it's for 45 bucks. Come on. But I
40.
want to talk about that VIP though, right? It's 100
Yeah.
bucks. You get a gift bag, you get early access. But what's that private listening session? What's that entail?
Yeah, so that's where you actually get to hear the project, but also, so the
Yeah.
way that the project is being released is I'm only releasing one single on major streaming platforms, but the way that this is being released is the project is only accessible through my book. So I'm releasing a book this August called Wine Bars Volume 1 for the Love, where the entire project is produced by multi-platinum producers, the Heatmakers. So they produce for Cameron, Jim Jones, Dipset. They produce for like Lil Wayne, Rick Ross, all these different artists. And I'm, fortunate. So we grew up in the same neighborhood. So they produced the entire project. And so I'm giving people access. So with the VIPs, they're able to actually get that book. So the reason I wrote this book was because I rap about my life on this thing. I wrote this whole thing on the road. I wrote this whole thing dealing with tough times and things. And so the thing is, wine is so integrated in who I am that by the time I turned around, all of this stuff was about wine. And I used a lot of metaphors through wine and through the lens of wine. But if people didn't know wine, they wouldn't know what I was talking about.
Right.
So I wrote this book where I break down every wine reference on the project. And
Oh,
so
wow.
people can read the book. You get from like, I'm breaking down what Bordeaux is. I'm breaking down what Burgundy is. I'm breaking down what terroir is, and so people are able to read this book, learn about wine, but be able to apply that knowledge through the metaphors that I'm using on the project. So I'm very proud of it. It's something that people are going to learn from, but people will also really be able to connect with me because really, I didn't record this with. I wrote this music with no intention of putting any of it out. It
Mm.
was really on the Chicago episode of Street Sign where I was speaking to the artist Jenny that I was with, and she was just talking about how like your art isn't for you, it's to be shared. And when I started recording the stuff, I just kind of got bitten by the bug. And then in that Houston episode when I rapped, and everybody was like, yo, what? I didn't even know you could like really do this, because it was
Right.
always like just kind of like a little hobby at home. So that was kind of how it all came to be. So I say all that to say the VIPs are actually able to, you get your VIP ticket, you get the book. The book drops August 15th.
That's worth it by
You
itself.
are
Yeah.
literally one of the first people
Yeah.
to get it. And as you mentioned, it's a very valuable ticket. $45. You get 6 different wines and a fun night. So
Man. So where can people go to grab a ticket? Drop a URL for them.
yeah, so you can go to wineandhiphop.com. If you're following me on Instagram, it's at Real Wolf of Wine. The ticket links are in my bio. But yeah, you go to wineandhiphop.com. We got an icon right up there on top, the Terroir Tapes Listening Sessions Tour. You can just hit that. Tickets are available. Or just honestly, if you Google wine and hip hop, you'll find me. Tickets are
Yep.
available on the site right now.
You do
Events.
have that SEO on lock. You got it. You got it locked down. Yeah. Man, I appreciate you doing this. You've been on this rocket ship the last year and a half, man. So I'm curious. So I'm going to circle way back, right? You said you made this 5-year plan and it ended with like catering business, right? So
Yeah.
now, what's the 1-year plan? Let's just
Hmm.
boil it down a little bit from where you're at right now. I mean, we talked about the awards, we talked about all that. Like,
Hmm.
what's your goal? What's the
Yeah.
12-month goal? What's the
Um,
2-year goal right now?
that's a very interesting question. For me, this last year has really been about more of a hands-on approach to bringing wine and hip hop culture together. So I feel like the initiatives that I've been doing have been just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So especially with me making this foray back into music, I think that music is overall going to become a much bigger part of my brand. Thankfully, I am a very, very good rapper. There's like as far because people have done the wine rap stuff a lot, but it's kind of usually been like parody stuff. There's never been a genuine integration of someone that just mentioned wine a lot, and
Right.
that's ultimately what I'm doing. But it's not that I want to make a whole bunch of albums where I'm rapping on. I want to be more so like a curator and producer where I'm like hosting projects that are having lots of artists on there, and I'm doing the wine and hip hop pairings that way. So there's definitely going to be a lot more music projects. I am also working on lots of new shows on the level of Street Psalm. So there'll be much more of that. And I've never stopped consulting for different wine companies and wineries. So, ultimately just growing my footprint in the space that I'm in, but utilizing the platform that I've been able to develop for myself to overall make wine more approachable. So long story short, people will just be seeing a hell of a lot more of me.
Which is the perfect answer. But it's funny to hear you say that too, because I mean that musical flame really was relit in Chicago, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure, for sure. That's
Yeah.
really where it was, because I was just kind of shy with it, but not just that, just there were a lot of parts of myself that I didn't really feel fit into this the business space that I was in. But being on Street Psalm, it was almost requested of me to put more of myself out there. So it was really like, okay, the dog's off the chains now. I'm just gonna give you the
Yeah.
whole thing. And there were all these raps that I had where I was basically detailing my entire life. Like, so the first single that I'm releasing is called Quentin Tarantino, which is interesting because my AKA is the Wolf of Wine. It's from the Wolf from Pulp
I was
Fiction.
going to ask you about that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's because I was a fixer in the wine space. So, I was like the wolf for wine situations. But in that song Quentin Tarantino, I detail my life, but I basically from the moment that I was born up until my entry into the wine business, that I detailed the first verse, from beginning to end.
Mm.
And then the second verse is really just me talking about where I am now and looking back to where I was. So, but my comparison there was highlighting how the terroir of what my upbringing was is what ultimately created who I am. And the thing with terroir is, although you might have a rough terrain, the more plants struggle, the healthier they are. I wrote this rap. I was in the rap that for that song I wrote that I was in Portugal on the Douro River, and anyone that knows the terroir in Portugal, it's extremely rough. It's really hot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy for vines to grow, so the vines have to go very deep to find nutrients. And what ultimately happens though is because they're going so deep, they're able to grab great nutrients, and it's much more difficult to like basically break those plants, so you get a lot more healthier fruit, very complex flavors, as well as more intense flavors. And ultimately as humans, that was where I found relation to myself. So I was thinking about the terroir of Portugal, how you were able to make those complex wines, and how that rough terroir that I grew up in was able to make this complex person, but I'm able to express myself beautifully. So just
I
like
love
that.
that connection.
And
Yeah.
that's really what that's about. So that's how the whole project is. So, you think about that, and I make these songs so that I can connect with people that don't have that personal connection with wine, and I can find something for them to grab onto as a hook, and to develop some sense of personal investment into, and want to find more and want to feel more. So that's really what the project's all about.
I love that. I hate that I'm going to miss you here in town. For anyone watching this, Google him. I'll link him in the description of when I post this. Like, just pick up a ticket, pick up a VIP ticket because it's worth it.
Oh yeah, the music's good.
Man, that's going to be fantastic. Before I let you go, talk to me about Jalen Brunson.
Oh man,
Does he own that city yet, or no?
They better just make him mayor. You know, I gotta say, like taking how many millions did he leave on the table just to stay in New York?
Quite a few.
I mean, like shout out to him. You know, but you know, New York's a big market. He'll make it on the back end, and it'll be much more beneficial to him. But no, he's a great player, man, and I love to see a guy have a breakout year like that. So no, all praises due to him. I do. It is interesting to just kind of recreated Villanova, though. I'd like for them I'd like for them to just get one more piece in there that's going to be a little bit of a game changer. But you know, it's good to see New York winning and doing some cool stuff.
I can't wait for the game to be on the line and Bronny James to be trying to defend Jalen Brunson. Like I just can't wait to see. We know what's going to happen in that situation.
Oh yes, yeah. You know, Bronny's going to block him.
That's not what I was going to say, but okay, yeah.
But you know what? I give that kid a lot of credit because it takes balls to do it, you know, and there's a lot of people trying to take him to tear him down, but the fact that he still gets up and goes out there every day as a kid that's already a multi-millionaire, you know, it's and people also really have to think about the fact that the NBA is still a business, and realizing what the cash value add that, you know, just having, it's not just about doing what LeBron says, but having the first father-son duo ever in the NBA adds a certain amount of dollars in that to the Laker brand. So it's still a business at the end of the day. And, you know, it's not just about, unfortunately, it's not just about winning basketball games. I'm not happy with their coaching choice, though. I'm like, yo, give my man Mark Jackson a coaching job, man. Like,
you know,
who did he piss off? I don't know.
It makes me wonder if the entire point of that podcast was for JJ Redick to get that head coaching job.
I don't understand it.
If not, it's just the perfect, like, timing, just happenstance. But it smells fishy. That smells fishy.
I don't understand it. You know, I'm a LeBron fan. I hope it works out.
Yeah.
But I don't understand.
I'm just waiting for that moment, like when King Griffey Jr. cut in front of his dad and caught the foul ball, or caught the pop up in front of King Griffey Sr. I'm waiting for Bronny to take a rebound from LeBron or to do something like that and just see what happens, right? That's what I'm waiting to see.
The question I heard is like, is he going to call him Dad or Bron on the court? Your dad.
It's Daddy. It's Daddy on court. It's Daddy on court.
You know, so. But look, you know, it takes guts to do it, man. You know, he knows what he's up against and trash talk and stuff, and not everyone can stand up to that. So respect.
That deck is stacked against him, and like you said, kudos to him for even taking it on. I mean, it takes a certain bit of gumption within you to even want to do that.
Yeah,
you know?
He could just stay home and get checks and post Instagrams, like, you know. Yeah.
Jermaine, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for your time. One more time, drop your Instagram handles, your social media handles, all that, just so if they missed it earlier, they can follow you.
Yes. At Real Wolf of Wine, at Wine and Hip Hop Show. Hit me up on Instagram. Google Wine and Hip Hop. You know, my website's very easy to remember. It's wineandhiphop.com. And no, man, I'm extremely appreciative of you having me on, and definitely looking forward to getting back out to Tulsa. And you know, I know you're not going to be there, but we're gonna toss a few back when we are there at the same time. And if you do get back to NY, just let me know.
Yeah, I am coming to New York for the Tribeca Film Festival. I know for sure next year I'll be close in Toronto in September, so we might be able. We'll figure something out. But that castle party, we're doing it. We're
no shortage of castles, man. You just let me know.
All right, man. I appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thank you, man. You too.
All right. Be good.